For the third and final section, Dr. Jeffries will be addressing where to begin as teachers. For this segment, we will be listening for possibilities. So, where are the potential opportunities for working with students?
Hello again, I'm Hasan Kwame Jeffries, and this is Confronting Hard History, Part 3, The Approach. I have identified 7 principles for teaching race and racism accurately and effectively. I call them the 7 Bs, and I want to share them with you now. The first of these principles, the first B, is be clear. Language counts. Language matters. Language has the power to affirm people's humanity or rob them of their humanity. When talking about, for instance, the era of slavery, we need to talk about African Americans who were in bondage, who were held in slavery as enslaved people, not simply as slaves, but as enslaved people, enslaved African Americans. Their status as slaves, quote unquote, is just that. It's a status. It does not define their fullness as human beings. And in fact, just calling them slaves robs them of their humanity. And we need to do everything that we can to affirm their humanity, to help our students identify with them, to bridge that empathy gap. We have to be positive. There are so many negative stereotypes about people of color centered around race that is critically important, especially in those school districts that are overwhelmingly white, that we combat stereotypes through positive imagery and through incorporating the intellectual contributions of and artistic contributions of African Americans and people of color. This is absolutely essential. In fact, we know that our students do not come into our schools as empty vessels. And so they are bringing with them the cultural baggage of the outside, which includes these negative stereotypes about groups as a whole. So whereas we find that individual people of color may be celebrated, the dominant beliefs, racist beliefs that have proliferated in our society for so long can coexist in the minds of people, even as they celebrate individual Black folk as artists, athletes, and even politicians. So we have to have images of Black folk around. We have to have quotes from Black folk around. We have to assign material from Black authors, and not just when they're talking about Black subjects. It is important that we offer sort of an intellectual spectrum for our students to draw from. We have to be open. When talking about race and racism, it's critically important that we start where our students are. African American activist and organizer Ella Baker famously approached grassroots organizing by saying you have to start where the people are. Well, we have to do the same thing. We have to start where the students are, and we have to be open to their questions as well as open to their thoughts and ideas, even though they may not be right, even though we'll have to do some correcting and explaining. It is critically important that we figure out where they are and work with them to move to a place that we want them to be. We can't assume what they know, and we can't assume what they don't know. The fourth principle is we have to be personal. We have to share our stories. And this is especially important for white teachers when they are talking about race and racism. And being personal requires one, acknowledging publicly to your students your own racial identity, literally saying, I am white. This is my cultural ancestry. This is my cultural inheritance. But also sharing your story of learning, your journey. This is really important because our students will not have all the answers, obviously, and they will make mistakes and they will be uncomfortable as they move into these conversations, as they learn about this history, just as We all once were, and many of us still are. And so it's important to share with your students what you have learned over the years, what you are learning now, what you once believed, what you now know better, uh, what you now believe, uh, the mistakes that we have made in conversation, in language, in thinking. Uh, that that openness on our side as instructors actually gives our students permission to make mistakes, to correct those mistakes, and then ultimately to learn. The fifth principle is be specific. When talking about racism in particular, we have to distinguish between those personal manifestations, implicit bias, personal prejudice, explicit bias, and structural manifestations, such as redlining and discrimination rooted in existing political structures and economic systems. We have to be intentional. We have to scaffold our learning. In other words, we cannot just drop in conversations on race and racism in the eighth grade when we want to talk about early American history. We have to be talking and teaching about race and equality and justice and fairness from the earliest grades, from kindergarten on up. And we build upon the concepts and ideas that we are introducing and history that we are introducing early on. Just like we do in the sciences, just like we do in mathematics, we don't wait until high school to introduce basic concepts. We build, and we have to do the same thing when talking about race and racism. So we scaffold up, we build up, we build vertically, but we also have to scaffold horizontally. We ought not just limit our teaching to race and racism, about race and racism, to social studies and government classes. We have to teach across the curriculum and think about ways to incorporate the subject matter in English language arts, in music, in art, in all aspects of our curriculum, so that we're reinforcing concepts and ideas, and we're also demonstrating that our students are experiencing isn't just isolated, can't just be compartmentalized, but has to be deconstructed from a number of different angles. And the seventh principle is be proactive. And this is really about engaging community. And for teachers, this is specifically about engaging parents. Parents are our classroom's community. And it is important that when we are going to engage this particular subject, which for many is the third rail of polite conversation, that we reach out to our parents and explain to them well in advance of what we're doing, ideally at the beginning of the school year, that these are subjects that we are going to address and we are going to confront, and we are going to confront them head on. And this is how we're going to do it. And invite them to be a part of the learning process. Because I guarantee you they have not been a part of this process, and they hold many of those same stereotypes that our children, our students, will be bringing into the classroom. Now, this is critically important because it is necessary to reassure, even though they may not feel it's reassuring, that our two parents, especially for white parents, that this isn't about shaming white children, blaming them for things they had no involvement in. No child that we are teaching is responsible for anything that has happened in the past. Slavery, Jim Crow, segregation, they are not responsible for that. They are not responsible for anything that is occurring right now. But they are, in fact, responsible for cleaning up the mess that we have made. They are responsible for tomorrow. And it is our responsibility to prepare them to adequately address the problems that they are going to confront in the future. And the only way that we can do that is if we take a direct and look, a deep dive, and not be afraid of confronting head-on hard history. Now, I said there were 7 principles and 7 B's, but I actually kind of lied. There's an 8th one. An 8th one that I added this spring. my daughter is a gymnast, 10 years old, is a gymnast, and we were at a meet in the spring before things really shut down. And her favorite routine, her favorite event is doing the floor routine, and she's really good. And she got to one moment where she, in her routine, in this competition, when she was about to do her tumbling pass, and I noticed just a slight hesitation before she did her tumbling pass. And then when she did her tumbling pass, she crushed it and scored her best score for the season. And as we were after the event, after the meet, and we're driving home, I asked her. I said, what? I said, I noticed during your floor routine this slight hesitation right before you did your tumbling pass. And I said, what happened? What was going on? And she said that, she felt that she was doing really good in her routine, but that if she wanted to score the highest score that she could possibly get, which she knew she could do, that she would have to be bold. And so she told herself in that moment, literally, be bold. And that's what we have to do in the classroom. In this particular moment, our students are demanding that we teach this history accurately and effectively. And they deserve to learn this history. But in order to do it, these times dictate that we be bold in our approach, that we be bold in our commitment to teaching the truth that for too long we have ignored. Thank you very much, and good luck.
We are very thankful to Dr. Jeffries for his words today and the thinking that it has spurred within our school community. A few pieces to keep in mind from that third segment as you're moving into the third part of the day around creative resistance. The first is remembering that our language matters, that it has an extreme amount of significance in the way that we communicate our ideas to others. The second, that we will make mistakes, but we will grow from them, and that's an important part of the learning process. The third, the intent of this work is not and should not be to shame others. So we need to keep that intent and that purpose close as we're engaging in the work. And fourth, it's okay to hesitate, but we need to be bold and navigate and push through that. Thank you so much, and we hope you have a great third part to your day with engaging in creative resistance.